and Happy New Year! I hope you've had a lovely festive season and a great start to 2023. This is the time of year when we hear a lot about setting goals and targets, resolutions, word of the year, things to aim for, whether that is with our hobbies and our crafts or in other aspects of our lives. In today's video, I'm going to share a slightly different approach to this, and whether you are a crafter or not, I hope that what I share today will be useful in helping you to develop an alternative approach to goal setting and resolutions. I also hope that this video will help you get more sewing done, or more knitting, or more whatever it is that you want to do more of this year, but in a nice and gentle way, because I really believe that we should be gentle on ourselves. I think the first place to start is to reconnect with everything that really inspires you, whether that's a favourite book, maybe a book from your childhood, maybe it's a piece of artwork or a special piece of music. Whatever it is that really fills you up and makes your heart sing, that is a great place to start when you want to get inspired to be creative. For me, the number one thing that inspires me always is nature. It's winter time here in the UK and in the Northern Hemisphere, and for me personally, this just doesn't feel like the right time of year to be starting something new and setting goals, even though that's what we tend to do when the new year starts. But I don't feel like this because for me, winter is a time of slowing down, taking care of yourself, and hibernating. Naturally, spring feels like the time of year to start something new, have a spring clean, have a clear out, clear the slate and try something new, a new approach perhaps. So in the past, I have sometimes set myself my goals for the year in the springtime instead. But whatever it is that inspires you, I think it's a great place to start to take a bit of that in before you then begin to think about your own creative projects. This year I'm really going to let nature and the seasons lead me in the direction that I want to go. So I'm going to be paying more attention to the tiny changes that happen throughout the year, reading my almanac and the lovely country diary of an Edwardian lady. This really helps to inspire me and to feel more creative. But I don't want this to be a goal or a target, that I have to go for a nature walk every single day, or I have to pick up my book every day. I'm just going to leave my books around where I can see them and just try to incorporate these small habit changes into my life, where I think about nature even more than I already do. And when it comes to planning and goal setting, well, in the past I've written so many lists for things that I wanted to achieve, and I'm just looking back on my diary from last year just to see which goals did I set for myself and did I achieve them. And as I'm about to share with you now, and it is quite embarrassing, I did set myself quite a lot of large goals, and I actually didn't achieve a single one. And this is really typical of what I tend to do to myself every year. I set myself unachievable goals, large tasks that I just cannot complete. And even when I try to simplify those goals and targets, they still don't work. Having a list of things that I want to do just ends up making a hobby feel like a chore to me. And it just doesn't work. It almost puts me off. I don't like having something to tell me what I need to do. I like to go with the flow. I like to pick up a project when I feel like working on it and put it down when I want to work on something else. I don't want a list there telling me that I have to complete this thing before I go on to the next. For me, targets and goals just take the creativity away. And therefore, that takes away the enjoyment. So it's really easy to think that, well, if you don't set yourself any targets and goals, will you actually even achieve anything? And I'm going to test that theory out this year. I'm not going to set a single goal or target for myself. And this is probably the first year that I've ever done this. Instead, I'm just going to leave this page in my planner with the title Accomplishments and just leave a gap there. And if I finish something, or achieve something, if I make something, I'm just going to write it down here. And hopefully by the end of the year, I will have a list of a few things that have been completed. But there is no to-do list. So my approach for this year is not to set any goals or targets, but to compile a list throughout the year of the things that I do achieve. Now, the next thing that I want to do this year is I want to incorporate more sewing into my life. I want to do more embroidery. I want to do more English paper piecing. I want to work on projects either for my own patterns and designs or for my own pleasure, personal projects, and I want to do it more. And I must admit, throughout, especially the end of last year, I wasn't picking up my projects very much at all. I wasn't really getting that much done. So how am I going to do this year without setting a list of goals and targets? Well, I'm going to try and change my daily habits. I want sewing on a daily basis for enjoyment and creativity to be part of my life, a bigger part of my life than it already is. So to do that, I have to change my habits. I have to set things up so that it makes it easier for me to pick up a project whenever I want to work on it, pick up a project whenever I have a spare few moments. And this is difficult to do when you have so many other things going on with family life and running a small business. So I've had a really good think about how I can make this more achievable, and this may work for you too. I think when it comes to crafty projects, and especially if you're someone like me who likes to have a lot of different things on the go at once, then organisation really is key. And this year I'm really going to make a conscious effort to do two main things. Number one, to have everything ready to go for a particular project. So even down to having the needle threaded, the shapes prepped, everything all together in either a sewing box or a basket. That way, whenever I get a moment, and we'll come on to time later, the project is ready to start. I can pick it up and put it down when I get a chance. So I'm sorting out my sewing boxes and my baskets, and I'm grouping together everything for a particular project so that I can get started whenever I need to. For this approach, it's really handy if you have extra scissors, extra reels of thread, and then you can keep them with each project. And also your containers don't need to be fancy. You can use a tin that used to be used for chocolates, you can use organza bags, you can use plastic bags, whatever you've got. As long as it groups everything together and has it all ready, then this will work. It's nice to have fancy storage boxes if you can for your pieces, but it's not essential. The main idea is that everything is grouped together. And then the second part of this is to have the projects in places where you can access them easily. So I'm going to put some of my projects downstairs in the living room where I can find them so I can pick them up when I want to have a bit of stitching time and then put them down again. If they're hidden away in cupboards, then I'm less likely to think about them. I think the next step is to really reframe how we think about time, because I don't know about you, but I'm really guilty of saying to myself, I don't have time to sew today, or there's no time right now to do this. But even if we just fit in a few minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of stitching, you will have done more sewing than if you hadn't have done those 3 minutes. So every little bit is worthwhile, and that's where the organisation that we just talked about will really help. If your project is all ready to go, then you can pick it up and just get those 3 minutes in to do a bit of stitching. That's really helpful if you can take it with you on the go. For example, I like to take a project with me if I'm waiting in the car while my son is at one of his clubs while I'm waiting to pick him up. That works for little, quick bits of stitching, but if there are bigger tasks to do, such as preparing shapes, cutting, basting, and that sort of thing, then I'll leave those for the larger chunks of time that I might have. Perhaps if I've got an hour or 2 hours in an evening. This leads really nicely on to my next point, which is about grouping tasks together. I think that, especially if you're tackling a big quilt project and an EPP quilt, it really helps to do a lot of the same task at once. I am well known to be the sort of person that flits between things, a bit of this and a bit of that, but really to get things moving along and get more done, the best way to approach things really is to do a lot of one task at a time. So whether that is sitting down and cutting out your shapes for an hour or two, basting them and having them all ready, it's really worthwhile spending a chunk of time, one of those larger amounts of time that you have, doing all of the same task, and you'll thank your past self afterwards. I have experience of this. It's really nice to know that I have a nice tin of 1-inch hexagons all ready to go for when I finally start that scrappy quilt. So it's really worthwhile to have a little production line going. This can sometimes feel a bit at odds with creativity, can feel a bit production line, a bit like you're churning something out, but if you only do this for an hour or two and you have enough pieces ready to make a block, for example, not a whole quilt, I wouldn't recommend sitting down and trying to do thousands of pieces for a whole quilt all at once. But if you do spend those chunks of time on one task, then you will find it makes the next step easier because, for example, if you've basted them all, they're all ready to sew, and then you can get on with that in your little snippets of time. The next really important thing that really helps us to get more done is to have a bit of a mindset change, a bit of a change of mentality. Really tell yourself that you are a sewist or a quilter or an embroiderer or a knitter, whatever it is, and really tell yourself that that is important in your life, that you lead a handmade life, for example, that making things is integral to who you are and that it is so important. It's up there on your priority list. Now, it may not be at the top of your list because we all have so many other aspects to our lives, but if you keep telling yourself how important it is because, for example, it grounds you and it helps you stay calm and helps you be the best version of yourself, then this can really help you to prioritize it throughout the day and throughout the week and to get more done. That's the approach that I'm going to take this year anyway. And you can apply this to anything: gardening, exercise, cooking. I'm going to reframe how I think about myself, really see myself as a creative person, and really raise how important it is to me. And this way, I'm hoping that it will change my daily habits and it will help me to incorporate even more sewing into my life. My final tip, if you like, is about making the tasks that you enjoy the least that little bit more enjoyable. So we all have aspects of our hobby that we enjoy more than others. I know it's quite common that people don't enjoy putting a binding onto a quilt or even the basting of a quilt. Maybe if you love EPP, you might not enjoy the cutting and basting of the shapes as much as the sewing. So something that's really helpful is to try and make those parts a bit more enjoyable by doing something else at the same time. So whether that's listening to a really lovely audiobook or your favourite piece of music, perhaps watching something on YouTube or Netflix, for example, doing that at the same time can help to make the tasks that you don't really enjoy that much a little bit more bearable. And if you can get through that, then it's going to move you forward, isn't it? And get you to the next stage, perhaps the sewing stage that you enjoy more. And in that way, you'll get more done. Well, that's my theory anyway, and that's something I'm really going to try hard to do this year. Not put things off, but to just try and make them a little bit more enjoyable. So that's the end of this week's video, and I really hope that you found some value in it, and I really hope that it was enjoyable. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you did like it, I would really love it if you could give it a thumbs up, because that really helps me and it helps my channel. And if you're not a subscriber, I would love you to stick around if you enjoy these sorts of calm, relaxing sewing videos, because there will be more to come. So thank you once again for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.